mahabang political dynasty, kung saan sabay-sabay na umuupo sina nanay, tatay, ate, kuya, pinsan, lolo, lola at si bunso.
Dahil nga sa tagal na nila, no, parang sa isa sa negosyo yan, nag-i-innovate na rin sila, no? Nag-a-adapt sila sa sitwasyon.
Habang tumatagal sa posisyon ng isang political dynasty, lalong yumayaman ang kanilang angkan. May isang senador nga, tumaas ang net worth ng 500 million pesos sa loob lang ng 3 taon sa pwesto. At ang asawa niya na senador din, nadagdagan ang net worth ng tumataginting na 1.9 billion pesos. Matapos lang ang 6 na taon sa pwesto. Maraming kongresista din ang dumoble o tumriple ang yaman matapos lang ang 3 taon. Mapapasana all ka na lang talaga. Ang problema, habang kinakamkam ng magkakamag-anak ang kapangyarihan, lumalala rin ang korupsyon at pang-aabuso sa bayan. Ayon nga sa pag-aaral, marami sa pinakamahihirap na lugar sa bansa ang pinamumunuan ng political dynasties.
Imbis na pagsisilbi sa bayan ng atupagi nila, ang ginagawa nila impunity. Nagnanakaw, nananakot, bumibili ng boto, kumikita ng kickback sa lahat ng infrastructure, at inaabuso yung posisyon. So, hirap yung lugar. Pero ang yumayaman, guess who? Yung mga makapangyarihang pamilya, mga political dynasty sa lugar.
Ngayong 2022 elections, pare-parehong pangalan na naman ang makikita natin sa balota. Pero unti-unti, may mga sumusubok na lumaban sa mga nasa pwesto. Nasa iyo ang kapangyarihan kung hahayaan mo na patuloy na tumaba ang mga dinastiya.
Kalimutan niyo po ang mga pangalan namin, ang mga apelyido namin at tignan ninyo ano ang record namin sa pagtulong sa taong bayan.
Wala naman dynasty sa Pilipinas kasi we have free and open elections.
Totoong may mga political dynasties na maayos, totoong hindi. Meron pong study ang AIM na halos directly related yung kadamihan ng political dynasty sa poverty ng lugar.
I could not see Davao go back in shambles.
There's no such thing as dynasty as long as fair yung elections.
That's not dynasty, it's the people who's the last say. That is democracy, that is not monarchy.
A good dynasty. It has been a family tradition to become congressman.
Sa ating pamumulitika, may mga political families talaga.
Ano-ano nga ba ang epekto ng mga political dynasties sa bansa? Una, kahirapan. Ayon sa pag-aaral, may epekto ang pagkakaroon ng political dynasties sa mas mabagal na pag-unlad at kahirapan ng isang lugar. Paniniwala nga ng ilang eksperto, tila ba sinasadya ng ilang political dynasties na manatiling mahirap ang kanilang pinamumunuan para patuloy na umasa ang mga mamamayan sa mga may hawak ng kapangyarihan. Oo, minsan may relief goods at may ayuda. Pero kadalasan, sapat lang o kulang pa nga ang binibigay ng mga politikong ito sa kanilang mga kababayan.
Advantage ba sa kanila kung maraming mahirap? Advantage, kasi umuutang na loob sa kanila habang tinutulungan nila. Ang hindi alam ng mahirap nating kababayan, ito rin ang sanhi ng kahirapan nila. Sila ang gumawa ng problema.
Pangalawa, korupsyon. Ayon din sa mga eksperto, habang lumalaki at lumalakas ang mga political dynasties, nawawala naman ang checks and balances sa gobyerno at mas lumalala pa ang korupsyon. May isang dating dinastiya nga, nakapagtayo na ng kastilyo sa kanilang probinsya, na kilala bilang isa sa pinakamahirap na lugar sa bansa.
Hindi na ma-check yung corruption sapagkat they controlled all the information. Hindi na ma-check sa yung mga bidding procedures, pwede nilang i-rig yung mga bidding.
Pangatlo, paghina ng demokrasya. Dahil sila ang nasa poder, kontrolado nila kung paano ginagamit ang pondo ng gobyerno. At madalas, ginagamit nila ito upang siguraduhin na sa susunod na eleksyon, sila pa rin ang mananalo o ang kanilang anak, asawa, kapatid, pamangkin, lolo o lola.
Dahil nga sa konsentrasyon ng political power sa iilang pamilya, hindi na nabibigyan ng tsansa halos yung iba. na makapagsilbi rin sa gobyerno.
At kung iisang pamilya na lang ang namumuno sa isang lugar, kaninong interes pa nga ba ang tunay na mangingibabaw? Alamin kung ano ang mga kasalukuyang ginagawa ng Participate. Bumisita lamang sa inclusivedemocracy.ph at i-follow ang aming social media accounts.
Makakabangon din sa tamang panahon. Hindi pa rin tayo natuto na ang buhay ay ganito. Dapat lamang tandaan, lahat yan ay may katapusan. Kailangan lang paghandaan, ipanatag ang isipan, umasa lang na may gabay na sa atin ay aakay. Makakabangon din, makakabangon din. Sana makakabangon din. Diba makakabangon din sa tamang panahon. makakabangon din sa tamang panahon. Hindi pa rin tayo natuto na ang buhay ay ganito. Dapat lamang tandaan, lahat yan ay may katapusan. Kailangan lang paghandaan, ipanatag ang isipan, umasa lang na may gabay na sa atin ay aakay. Makakabangon din, makakabangon din. Sana makakabangon din. Diba makakabangon din sa tamang panahon. Samahan ako't ating salubungin, maayong ugma sa atin ay makakarating. Makakabangon din, makakabangon din. Sana makakabangon din. Diba makakabangon din. Makakabangon din. Sana makakabangon din. Diba makakabangon din. Makakabangon din. Sana makakabangon din. Diba makakabangon din sa tamang Halina kayo, ating likhain, mga himig sa ating ugat na katanim. Mula pa sa ating mga kaninunuan, tunog Pilipino ating kayamanan. Halina kayo, ating balikan, musikang Pilipinong ating tinaligdan. Mula hilaga timog
In the name of the Father,
Recording
the
in
Son,
progress.
and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Let us be present to the Lord our God, who is in our midst, God of all knowledge and wisdom, who inflames our minds with a passion to learn and to understand. God of all creation, who enlivens our imaginations with the desires to build and to create. God of all hope, who transforms our hearts with a yearning for the world of your wildest dreams. We thank you for gathering us together here to praise you by our own words and works. We praise you for the knowers and the seekers, the builders and the makers, the lovers and the dreamers, who are gathered to attend the online alternative classes program in our university. We offer everything to you throughout this program. We beg you, Lord, to bless and protect from all harm all the participants, facilitators, and the organizers of this alternative classes program. We pray that you bless all the persons in charge of this program, that they may fulfill their tasks diligently and responsibly. This pandemic has forced us to create and to expand new ways of learning about ourselves, our country, and our common home. We know that without your grace, we can do nothing. May we be living witnesses of your genuine love through the implementations of the knowledge and skills acquired through this alternative classes program. Help us to live lives of abundant faith, steadfast hope, and undying love during this time of the pandemic. Following the example of Our Lady of Peñafrancia, our Mother, and Saint Francis Xavier, our patron. Send us your Spirit, O Lord. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ, your Son. Amen.
Hello there, Athenians! Here is what you need to know about the Alternative Class Program, or ACP. The ACP is conducted every semester to provide college students with formative opportunities outside of their regular classroom routine and daily schedule in support of the university's uniquely Jesuit educational goals. Instead of attending their class for a particular period, students choose at least one ACP topic from among the offered webinars and e-workshops. Carefully selected resource speakers from different fields of specialization are invited to share their knowledge, skills, and inspire students to nurture their personal development and partake in social advocacies or causes. We thank you for your participation in the first ever virtual ACP last semester, which recorded an all-time high attendance turnout and received an overwhelmingly affirmative evaluation from students. Because of the ACP's affirming results and positive impact, we are continuing with a bigger and better ACP. However, the program shall still be carried out via digital platforms to ensure everyone's safety. The theme for semester's ACP is Cannonballs, Firing Up Dreams, Courage, Action. This theme is inspired by the conversion of Saint Ignatius of Loyola, founder of Society of Jesus. Just as Saint Ignatius was hit by a cannonball, which altered his life and moved him to a greater calling, this ACP hopes to fight up universities for students to have dreams, discern, and how these dreams contribute to one's personal improvement and the common good, muster courage, and find ways to accomplish these dreams. To do this, ACP offerings are carefully chosen to be relevant to the current times, formative, and mission-driven. The webinars and e-workshops hope to start a conversation on one's life in the pandemic and the varied factors that affect it and facilitate personal and even community reflection and discernment. Who knows? These virtual activities could fire up meaningful cannonball moments in you, their students. At the end of the webinars and e-workshops, the ACP hopes for the following objectives. First, acquire knowledge and/or skills that are relevant to one's interest, talent, skill, passion, or advocacy. Second, relate to share the learning and insights gained from the topic or activity in one conversation or dialogue and personal reflection. Third, examine the importance of one's interest, talent, skill, passion, or advocacy to the development of the society. And fourth, seek ways or opportunities by which the gained knowledge and skills can be further advanced and used for the benefit of the immediate organization community or larger society. For now, we would like you to listen to the speakers sharing and take part in the conversation. Dream, have courage, take action, and don't forget to learn and have fun while we experience ACP Ateneans.
To our distinguished guest speakers, to our Ateneo de Naga University students, faculty, administrators, and staff members, to our dear friends and associates, Diyos marhay na aldaw po sa saindog gabos. It is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome all of you to this alternative class program with its theme Cannonballs, firing up dreams, courage, and action. My dear friends, we know that for yet another year, this alternative class program, and indeed our whole academic year, is being enacted in the context of the pandemic. The pandemic continues, and some can say it has worsened, and yet we press on. We press on with the work of education. We press on with the work of teaching and learning. And that is why I believe it is truly appropriate that we hold this alternative class program in the context not only of this very challenging pandemic, but also in the context of the special event we celebrate and commemorate this year. That is the 500th year since the conversion of Saint Ignatius of Loyola. We recall how Saint Ignatius, fighting as a soldier at the Battle of Pamplona 500 years ago, was wounded by a cannonball, his leg shattered. And with his long convalescence in the castle of Loyola, this became the avenue by which he would be brought closer to God, by which he would be converted, and by which he would found the Society of Jesus. As it was for St. Ignatius of Loyola, so it is for us today. If for Ignatius, it was the Battle of Pamplona and a cannonball, for us in this day and age, it is this pandemic and all that we have to bear, not only to survive, but to flourish during this time. And that is why I am indeed very pleased and happy to know of this talk and the many other talks that are being offered to you in this alternative class program. This finely curated set of topics and our amazing lineup of speakers show us what is indeed possible even in the midst of crisis. That if we are able to muster our dreams, our courage, and translate them into action, this crisis will yet show us the way to a better, more peaceful, more developed world. And so, my brothers and sisters, once again, I welcome all of you to this alternative class program. May this session and all the sessions in the ACP be an opportunity for us to flourish, to grow, to fire up our dreams, our courage, and action for a better tomorrow. Before we end, I would like to give my sincere thanks to Mr. Sunny Virtus and the Office of Student Affairs team for their hard work in preparing this ACP program for all of you. And of course, our sincerest thanks to all our wonderful speakers who give so much of their time and talent to enlighten us during this ACP. Once again, a warm welcome to everyone. Salamat po, asin, Diyos mabalos.
Isang maganda at mapagpalang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Naririnig po ba ako?
Yes po, sir.
Okay, maraming salamat. Okay. Pagbati sa lahat ng mga students ng Ateneo de Naga University at sa mga College Ignition Formation Program and National Service Training Program facilitators and students na nakatutok ngayon dito sa Zoom at sa YouTube channel ng Office of Student Affairs. While you're at it po, like and subscribe sa kanilang channel because road to silver play button po ang goal natin. Maraming salamat sa Office of Student Affairs at sa Office of Mission and Identity ng Ateneo de Naga University sa pag-organize ng ating Alternative Class Program o ACP ngayong taon. At ang ating ACP ngayong hapon, di ba, ay pinamagatang Woke, Untangling Issues and Opportunities of Youth Participation in Governance and the 2022 Elections. Ngayong napakainit at blooming hapon dito sa Bicolandia, particular sa Naga City, samahan niyo kami natalakayin at pag-usapan ng mga issues na may kinalaman sa participation ng mga kabataan sa governance. Maging ang ating mga prospects in some democratic processes gaya nga ng nalalapit na eleksyon, di ba? Ako po si Marshal Murillo, ang inyong simpleng guro at empleyado ng Ateneo de Naga University ay kasama ninyo buong hapon na makikipagtanungan at makikipagkwentuhan. No? Kasabay ng inyong paboritong inumin ngayong hapon, ako ngayon I'm drinking my favorite tea. Magkwekwentuhan lang tayo at magtatanungan, no? Magdamagan. No? So sumali po tayo. Mamaya meron po tayong merong parte ng ating program na kung saan hihingin namin ng inyong mga insights at katanungan para sa ating conversation this afternoon. So, sinasabi, 'di ba, na ang governance today is more important, important than ever, especially sa ating mga kabataan. I will include myself kahit certified dito na ako, no. At maging sa ating bansa, gaya ng Pilipinas, no. Sinasabi na ang governance ay tumatalakay sa mga tanong kung paano binubuo ang iba't ibang political na desisyon na nakakaapekto sa ating buhay at kasama rin dito ang pagtukoy kung sino at kaninong boses nga ba ang lumilikha ng ganitong mga desisyon. Alam ko na alam ninyo ang kalagahan ng participation nating mga kabataan sa iba't ibang political activities. In different social media platforms alone, makikita at mapapansin natin, di ba, na napaka-aktibo ng ilan sa atin sa pag-share, sa pag-like, at pagbabahagi ng kanilang opinyon tungkol sa iba't ibang issue ng bansa. At isa nga dyan ang usapang may kinalaman sa nalalapit na botohan o eleksyon. But more importantly, ano-ano pa nga ba ang role natin sa pagtaguyod halimbawa ng good governance, sa pagpapatibay ng demokratikong proseso at prinsipyo ng bansa? Yan at iba pa ay ating palalalimin maya-maya lamang. At upang samahan tayo ngayong hapon, papakilala ko na ang ating special guest. Okay? So, ang ating guest ay walang iba kundi si Ms. Czarina Medina-Guce. She is a sociologist specializing in participatory governance, public policy, democratic innovations, local governance, and impact assessment. She consults for international development organizations, currently with the UN Development Program and Oxford Policy Management. She is also a teacher, teaching with the Development Studies Program of the Ateneo de Manila University and currently completing her PhD at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. She completed her executive courses in the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy and NUS, or National University of Singapore, on policy development and leadership. She serves on the board of the directors of People Powered, a global nonprofit working for the advancement of participatory democracy. She is also a former member of the board of trustees of the Asia Foundation in San Francisco, USA, and a 2014 fellow of its Development Fellows Programs for Emerging Leaders in Asia. Mga kaibigan, let's all welcome Ms. Czarina Medina-Guce. Good afternoon, Czarina.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon sa ating mga kasama. No, ang dami nakikita ko sa parang full house, no? Full house tayo today.
Well, I think lahat ng ating mga kasama dito ay woke. At breaking news, no? Ngayon lang lumindol dito sa Naguce.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so hindi naman ganun kalakas pero it's something you can feel. Tama ba mga nasa Bicol ngayon? So I think the earth is also acknowledging your presence.
Malala. Sana hindi gano'n, di ba? Nakakatakot yata.
Okay.
Nakaka-tense yata yung gano'n.
Na-woke na din yung earth. Okay. Sige, Czarina, well, I think it's not our first time bilang siguro certified tito at tita na marinig yung term na woke. So my question is, first question, what makes you woke?
Ako, personally, ako ay dahil namamag-asa pa rin.
Wow, namamag-asa pa din.
Oo, hindi pwedeng mawalan ng pag-asa mo. Ay, oh my God, dito naman dumidiklap yung kuryente.
O, di ba? Ibang experience.
Malala. Anyway, so yun, hope talaga. Hope pa rin. Lagi.
So, sa title ng ating Czarina, sa title ng ating ACP ngayon, it's called Untangling Issues and Opportunities of Youth Participation in Governance, no? Siguro simulan natin sa usapan na ano nga ba ang governance?
Okay. Governance, no, the technical definition of governance are it pertains to the systems of decision making, no, of government. Parang ano yung struktura, how is inclusion, exclusion, citizenship defined, diba? Sino yung legit nakasama sa mga usapin ng public agenda. And ano yung mga mekanismo for government to follow through on its policies, di ba? On its decisions. Yan yung governance. Pero pwede rin natin siyang hatiin sa dalawa, di ba? Broadly, governance, pero pwede rin natin siyang tinginan sa dalawa. Para dun sa mga administrative public policy discussions, they're point of view, ang punto de vista nila is the government systems, di ba? Administration, ganyan. So kung magpa-public ad ka, di ba? Yan, mga ganyan yung pag-aaralan mo, public policy. Pero tayo, di ba? Literature would tell us na mas lumalaki yung emphasis on the dynamic element, di ba? Hindi yung istruktura. Pero paano ba? What's the how, di ba? Kung yung dynamics is what? The what of government. Structure, bureaucracy, processes, di ba? Itong dynamics is ano yung power relations, di ba? How do we decide who gets to have a voice? What kinds of groupings now are given more privilege than others, diba? Itong mga usaping ito ang ating tinitingnan. So they're not exactly against each other, diba? The structure will always shape how the dynamics are. Pero lagi tayong sinasabihan ng literature na hindi siya determinist, diba? Hindi ibig sabihin na kung ano yung iyong sistema, diba? Hindi siya labanan ng pagandahan ng sistema. In fact, mas titingnan mo siya doon sa dynamics. The outcomes of governance are better seen, no? Better understood in terms of the dynamics of decision making. Ayan. Para kung nag-fall sa iwan yan.
Oo. Kasi mas mahalagang malaman ng ating mga estudyante kung ano nga ba yung konsepto ng governance. Kasi maaaring ang tingin nila, pag sinabi mong governance, ito'y activities lang, di ba, ng government. No? That the government is alone deciding.
Or gobyerno lang. No?
Oo, di ba? So, kumbaga parang if you're going to put it in a diagram, you have halimbawa, private sectors, public sectors, and the civil society. And the dynamics, as you mentioned, yung kanilang interaction. And yung goal, obviously, is to make it, to serve the interest of the population. No? That's why we have the concept of good governance. Diba? Ngayon, ang tanong ko, saan papasok yung mga kabataan? When we say youth participation in governance, ano nga ba yung youth participation sa aspeto or konteksto ng governance?
Malawak, no? Baka kakayanin natin yung ng 3 oras kung nasaan ang youth in governance. But to summarize, pwede natin siyang sabihin, no? We can look at it in terms of formal and informal spaces. Diba? Pag dun sa sinabi nating formal spaces, hihimayin ulit natin yung structure and design of government, diba? Kaya meron tayong una, diba, the electoral system. Boboto ka, diba? Participation yan ng youth. And in fact, kalalabas lang nung statement ng COMELEC a few days ago, sinasabi nila that based on the current numbers of the registration, 52% of the expected voters for next year's election come from the youth sector. As in, that is, I think that's surprisingly high and that's wonderful. But with a caveat that historically there's never been a youth vote. Anong ibig sabihin nun? Hindi pa natin nakita na ang boto ng kabataan ay nag-consolidate para magkaroon ng isang unifying trend, 'di ba? Na parang hindi natin pa siya nakikita that the winners of any past election has been determined by the youth or by the vote of the youth. Ayan. So maganda siyang isipin. No? I think it's a very exciting, challenging moment in our history. Naisipin na baka next year, we can finally see what the youth wants by giving us a concrete youth vote. Diba? So yun yung number 1, electoral system, participation ng youth doon. Pagdating other formal mechanisms, ito na yung paghahati-hatiin mo na yung national, local, formal representative bodies. Diba? Alam natin sa barangay, diba? Sa munisipyo, sa city, meron kang sangguniang kabataan and local youth development councils. Diba? Na hindi lang yung SK na ini-elect, but in the recent SK law, youth groups can be accredited and can be part of the local youth development council. So, ayun, kung organized kayo, if you're part of a student group or a community organization or Actually, kahit nga school-based groups, maraming kumukuha ng ganon ding representation. So, pwede yon. Aside from that, so at the national level, we have party lists, and kung iisipin mo rin, if the aspiration is to be elected, di ba, at a certain age, pwede ka na rin lumaban at certain positions. And the youth can mobilize around young, upcoming, progressive candidates. That's also a joy to see, no, yung mga kabataang umaakyat and the challenge of good governance. Ayan. Those are formal mechanisms. Tingnan natin yung informal. Ito ngayon yung gaya nga na nabanggit mo kanina. There's the civil society space, di ba? So when you become part of associations, of non-government organizations, people's organizations, etc., I think with a certain level of intersectionality, yun yung concept, no? Intersectionality. Hindi naman ibig sabihin na youth ka ay yun lang ang iyong category, di ba, na napupuntahan. Pwede ding youth na kababaihan, youth na LGBTQ+, pwede kang youth na farmer, fisherman sector, di ba? Pwede kang, ayan. So, pwede din siyang maghalo-halo in terms of sectoral groupings. So, sectoral and age, di ba, ganyan. Yun, and civil society, and what's wonderful about Philippine democracy, di ba? Parang we've shown many times in the world that civil society is very potent dito. Pag tinignan mo tayo, yung history ng civil society ng Pilipinas, i-compare mo sa other countries, ay bida-bida tayo, di ba? Bida ang saya. Pag nagkukwento ang mga Pilipino kung ano yung kaya natin gawin in terms of social in terms of social accountability, lobbying, di ba? Parang independent movements. And I'm not, di ba? We're not even talking about colors. Pero yung pag-organisa, magaling tayong mag-organisa sa ground. So lahat ng yun are part of governance. And siguro ang mas nagiging tanong with the youth is, ang challenge kasi sa youth is that it's very transitionary. Diba? Sabi mo nga tayo, gustuhin man natin, diba? Gumamit man tayo ng mga produktong mandadaya ng ating itsura, hindi na talaga tayo papasok sa kategoring yan. Ngunit, once in our lives, diba? Once upon a time, naging youth din tayo at naging parte din tayo ng ganitong mga activities. But that's the reality of the youth sector. It's very transitionary. So now, when you ask, so it's a very generational challenge, no? Kasi pag hinahamon lagi ang kabataan bilang pakitang gilas ka kabataan, di ba? Nasaan yung pag-asang tinitingnan namin sa'yo? You really just have this time frame for every generation, di ba? For every batch of youth. Meron ka talagang tinitingnan na, okay, paglampas mo ng 30, paglampas mo ng 35, by classification, hindi ka na youth. So yun yung challenge nun, di ba? Parang, how could the youth really understand their political and civic opportunities, 'di ba? Para base doon sa resources, kakayahan mo, hindi lang bilang isang tao, but yun nga, as a collective, no? Kung meron nga kayong organization, meron kayong grupo, ano yung meron kayo? And how do you maximize that so that your engagement in governance matters? Diba? Yun naman ang labanan lagi sa participation. If you are able to influence decisions of government based on the topics and issues and agenda that you feel are important to you. So yun ang ating siguro food for thought, no, sa ating mga kabataan ngayon. So hindi tayo wishful thinking na ay sana maraming pera, sana maraming resources para mag-organisa. Hindi ganun yung challenge ng youth eh. You are transitionary, you're here only for a couple of years, diba? And you're transitioning from school to work, and that's a big transition in life. So ano yun yung pag-iisipan natin, parang ano ba yung mga pwede natin gawin within the parameters of the possible. Diba? So yeah, and creative thinking, food for thought this afternoon.
Ang aga naman ng challenge na yon, ano? Na to transition from idea to a more tangible participation in governance, no? Babalikan ko mamaya yung yung interesting part about the youth vote, no? Kasi we'll go there a little later. So in other words, what you're saying, Czarina, is that sa sa buong proseso, kung proseso mo man siyang tatawagin, ng governance, meron talagang role na pinapasukan ng mga youth. No? Ang challenge lang is how are we going to make it more impactful in such a way that it will also produce a more positive impact to our society. No? Ang ano kasi, ang madalas na nababato sa mga kabataan, especially sa social media, is that halimbawa, sa konteksto ng Marshal, bakit kayo sabi ng mga opinion nyo tungkol sa usaping ito, hindi pa naman kayo pinapanganak. No? Can you perhaps give us an idea how can a youth counter that? Kasi minsan sa ang tingin ng iba, wag na lang akong pa-participate because people are shaming me because I haven't quote unquote experienced the evils of a particular era. No?
Kung itatahi natin siya sa ganon na experience, edi wala tayong lahat patutunguhan, di ba? Para wala tayong lahat patutunguhan kasi kailan lang ba lahat tayo nabuhay, di ba? Sige, i-frame natin siyang gano'n, no? Parang that kind of feedback that the youth receives, no? Ano yung criticism doon? Several layers. Una ka ni-criticize ka. Based on that feedback, parang di ka pa naman pinapanak mo, dami mong alam, ganyan. Ang unang layer nun is minamaliit yung kapasidad mo na i-frame kung ano yung social narrative ng iyong lipunan. 'Di ba? So it attacks your capacity to frame and understand the historicity of everything, 'di ba? Mga atinista naman tayo so gets natin yung ganyang mga termino, 'di ba? Lahat ay may pinanggagalingan at pinatutunguhan, 'di ba? At sabi nga ng philosopher na si River Maya, charot. 'Di ba? At sa paghamon mo sa daloy ng kasaysayan, 'di ba? Gagawa ka ng bagong daan, 'di ba? Liwanag sa dilim. Siguro yon, ilagay natin sa anong yon. Pag sinasabihan ka ng ganon, ilagay natin na ang perspective nun is sinasabi niyang hindi mo kayang i-frame ang iyong lipunan. So ano yung magandang response doon, 'di ba? Siguro una-unang response mo doon is wag mo patulan sa ganung level, 'di ba? Kung hostile, di ba? Kung hostile yung lengguwahe sa'yo, ang tawag sa atin ng democracy, di ba? Na lalo na sa kalagayan ng politika, not just here but all over the world, ang hamon sa atin is to go outside what is impulsive, di ba? To understand conversation as allowing spaces for dissent, 'di ba? Pwedeng hindi tayo mag-agree, 'di ba? Siguro yun din yung ating liliwanagin. Hindi naman ibig sabihin na nag-e-engage ka, ang hinahanap mo lang ay points of agreement, 'di ba? Kapag ang hinahanap mo lang ay mga tao na pareho ay yung iniisip sa'yo, ang mangyayari diyan, makukulong ka sa isang echo chamber. Baka narinig nyo na yon, di ba? So yung echo chamber, di ba, yung sound niya, nagba-bounce off lang kasi pare-pareho lang kayo ng sinasabi all the time. Hindi ka nag-grow sa space na yon, di ba? Sabi nga lagi, democracy demands dissent. 'Di ba? Kailangan ang pag-grow natin bilang citizens, ang pag-grow natin bilang kapwa even is yung matutunan natin to respond and to converse with others without that impulsive judgment, especially when you are triggered with hostility. So I guess wala namang, I think walang script, 'di ba? Na parang pag ito yung sinabi sa'yo, ito yung isasagot mo. But what I can share is that many of these hostile characters feel empowered to do that because they treat yung kausap nila as a non-human. At napakadaling gawin yan kapag nasa social media ka. 'Di ba? Kasi social psychology would say, puntahan na natin yung ganung usapin, na the mind associates humanity when you see facial expression, where there's a kind of physicality in the conversation, diba? And the dynamics of the pandemic really and you know the entire phenomena of social media has really placed that distance, diba? Hindi mo makitang tao yung kausap mo. So iba yun, siguro yun yung ilalagay ko, no? So when you are responding to this, assume mo na ang kausap mo ay tao. What would you say to this person if this person was really hostile in front of you? And siguro ang challenge din is mapakita mo sa taong ito na nag-hostile sa'yo na, huy, tao ang kausap mo. Diba? Pwede tayong hindi mag-agree, pero tao tayo nag-uusap at mag-usap tayo. Diba? Baka naman we can find, if not politically same leanings, we can at least share a dream for the country. Ano bang gusto nating pareho? Ayun.
So in other words, again, we keep on hearing this, no? Ang laban talaga ng pag-uusap at diskurso dapat sa labas. Minsan madalas nangyayari sa social media platform sa labas, no? Pero kasi dahil sa current setup natin na madalas sa ating mga kabataan ay kulong sa bahay at ang tanging engagement lang na kanilang naibabahagi o nagagawa is through social media. So as you mentioned, no, it's always the goal is really to level up, no, the discourse, no. Walang ad hominems, walang respeto pa rin, no. At ang tingin sa kanila ay
Find the humanity.
Right, oo. And I think sa mga Atenista dito ngayon nanonood, I think it's not new to us, no. Dapat ang tingin sa kapwa ay isang kapwa. Okay.
Oo, at saka grabe naman, 'di ba? Kung Atenista ka, tapos nagkakalat ka sa social media, wag ganun.
Oo, no?
Wag ganun.
So, ang laging challenge ay, to fight that impulsiveness, as you mentioned. I really like that. No? Balikan ko yung youth participation in terms of yung formal structure. No? May mga ibang local government units, no, sa iba't ibang parte ng bansa na kung saan binibigyan ng espasyo yung mga kabataan, yung mga youth leaders na gumawa, na mag-draft ng kani-kanilang ng ordinansa na may kinalaman sa kanila, no, sa issue ng mga kabataan. Ito ba ay maka-qualify natin as a proactive type of participation in governance kung madalas ang realidad ay sila ay ginagawa o nilalagay lamang dyan sa posisyon para maging, sunod-sunuran ng mga nakakatanda or seasoned politicians. Anong komento mo dito?
Sige, una kong comment. Sa mga nasa chat, pwede kayong magtanong ha. Para good afternoon yung bato nyo. Oo, good afternoon talaga. React kayo. Gamitin nyo yung reactions para feel namin kung nasaan kayo.
Correct,
kung meron kayong mga react ganyan. So yun, siguro hatiin natin yung scenario na binigay mo, 'di ba? Yung una is okay ba yung gawin, yung magda-draft ka ng policy, 'di ba? Tapos dadalhin mo sa sanggunian mo or i-propose mo, ay bonggang-bongga 'yon. That is wonderful. Bakit? Kasi una, that highlights, no, na yung pre-present yung agenda was independently made. Diba? That merong the decision making, no, yung pagbuo nga ng proposal na yon was autonomous, 'di ba? Kung ano yung sector mo or ano yung gusto mong i-represent, yung issue, 'di ba? Is it health, is it education, etc. That's very good. You veer away from cooperative tendencies, no? So yun yung puntahan natin, yung second part ng scenario na binanggit mo. Yung minsan inuupo ka lang diyan para masabing may representation,
right,
'di ba? That's called in many names, no, in literature, tokenistic participation, or yung ganong setup, ang tawag doon ay invited spaces, 'di ba? Yung minimediate ng person, ng entity in power, yung inclusion exclusion criteria, 'di ba? Invited lang, hindi siya open. 'Di ba? Invited. Merong arbitration, 'di ba, na nangyayari. So ano yung paano ito natin pwedeng mapag-isipan? And what do we do with this, 'di ba? Balik tayo dun sa first point. The strength of civil society is always seen when it can represent the people as an autonomous entity. Ayun, it's part of the expectation of civil society in democracies na hindi ka nga co-opted by government and or whoever is the political elite wherever, no. So kung feeling mo ang pag-join nyo dyan ay co-opted na invited space lang siya or tokenistic na ginagawa ka ng pirma ka sa attendance, 'di ba? Tapos kung makasalita yung politiko, ay merong youth representative, kinonsult namin yan, chuchu, 'di ba? Yan. Then find a way or analyze, do you have the political opportunities to push back? Okay, I put some caveat there because we know that civic spaces are not always friendly, 'di ba?
Correct.
Let's call a spade. Minsan pag lumaban ka, tatakutin ka na wala ka ng papalitan ka, wala ka ng seat, 'di ba? It's either you comply or you lose your representation. In those kinds of very difficult scenarios, you go back to your organization, di ba? You go back to whoever you represent. And now decide, parang anong gagawin natin? Wala ding wala ditong checklist kung ano yung dapat mong tingnan or kung ano yung dapat mong gawin. Because it's a very real dilemma for civil society in shrinking civic spaces. Baka naririnig nyo din ito sa literature or nababasa nyo minsan, di ba? Kapag yung freedoms to speak, freedoms of speech, mobilization, organization, yung mga civic freedoms ay na-compromise, 'di ba? So kapag lumaban ka, mayroong implication one way or another. You face real risks. So, yan, balik ka dun sa iyong grupo. So, if you feel that the representation is only tokenistic, if you feel that it's not really giving you the space to influence decisions that are important to you, then go back to your drawing board. What do we do? Diba? Sinabi ko kanina yung concept, yung political opportunity structure. Ano yung laman nito? Allies, right. Diba? Do you have other more senior civil society organizations that you can ally with, diba? And help you with that representation. Right. Parang i-consolidate nyo yung mga political capital nyo, diba? Another one is, we know that in the Philippines, the court of public opinion is very strong. Do you make statements? Right. Do you make this public, etc.? Diba? And you know, the history of youth engagement historically in the Philippines is maraming maraming connection sa journalism, the public space and the youth. Pwede yan. So yon. Pwedeng ganun yung gawin. Basically, you try to reimagine ano ba yung what's in our table, diba? What's there in our what are the cards that you can play, so you can maintain some level of autonomy, diba? At hindi ka na compromise doon sa iyong representation. Very easier said than done, in fact. I know that there are many CSOs that come to terms with this issue.
At least it's good to know that that these youth who are really genuine in giving service, in providing public service sa mga tao, may makukuhang alay, no? I think we've observed that, no, na mga kabataan, na mga leader, totoong leader ng kabataan, ay may mga nakukuha namang suporta mula sa mga seasoned politicians, no, at grupo, no, marami rin naman. May nagtatanong dito if this kind of activity is something that has to do with presentation. This is not again a webinar. It's really an informal kind of conversation. Yes. Kaya nga we encourage you guys to ask questions, no, because we are lessening the formalities of at a usual webinar na baka ma-bore kayo sa mga data. Pero maya-maya, si Czarina meron siyang prepare na mga presentations and data, no, to answer probably some of your questions. No? But while we are waiting for some questions, balikan ko yung napaka not so, ano ba yun? Yung youth vote na sinasabi, no? Kasi madalas nakikita natin siya, 'di ba? Pino-promote that ang youth vote ay powerful, but as you mentioned earlier, historically wala naman talagang categorically youth vote, no? Maaaring ito pa lang, hindi natin alam, no? But what we know according to the COMELEC ay marami sa populasyon ng mga boboto ay kabataan. Ano yung dapat natin i-look forward tungkol diyan? At ano nga ba talaga ang pwede nating tawaging youth vote? Kasi marami tayong nakikita mga paboto or poll ng mga iba't ibang universities, halimbawa kung sino ang kanilang preferred presidentiable, vice presidentiable, or senatoriable. Pero sa totoong buhay, sa base sa mga history, wala naman talaga, no? Hiwa-hiwalay pa ang kabataan sa pagpili ng leader. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, the studies on voting trends, no, in the Philippines, lagi siyang household based.
Right.
Gets niyo, parang bulto-bulto. So parang itong bahay na to, 'di ba, yung mga pamilya dito, isa, dalawa, tatlong, 'di ba, pamilya. Usually naman ganyan tayo, isang compound, 'di ba, magkakamag-anak ganon. So it's usually ganon. By household yung botohan. So kung ano yung boto nung head of the family, usually ganon. Sumusunod yung iba. In that kind of scenario, which is what's most observed, no, in previous election seasons. So sumusunod si youth, 'di ba? Yung kung may kabataan doon, sumusunod siya kung ano yung sinasabi ni elder niya, kung sinong iboto.
Right.
So in that regard, nadadilute, nawawala yung youth vote, 'di ba? So when we say na nasaan yung youth vote, naghahanap tayo ng independent vote na yung maa-attribute mo, 'di ba? Like halimbawa, 'di ba, nagagawa naman 'yan sa mga survey, sinasabi na okay, this person, 'di ba, or this president or this senator, 'di ba, in other countries then was elected by a middle-aged male, 'di ba, higher middle class kind of vote, 'di ba? Yun yung nagdala sa kanya sa boto 'yon. Dito sa Pilipinas, it's usually anong tawag doon? Baluarte.
Baluarte,
Hinanap ko
building,
yung
yeah.
term. Baluarte o households, areas, 'di ba?
Right.
So ano yung baluarte mo? Kahit sa maliit, 'di ba? Kahit barangay elections lang 'yan. Or kahit municipal level elections, parang anong barangay, 'di ba? Anong sitio, anong purok, kanino siya. So baluarte yung tingin. So maybe it's time that we imagine it. Maybe it's time that we reimagine na parang ganun ba talaga gusto natin bumoto na tumpok-tumpok, di ba? That we are clustered with others. It would be nice if that sameness of a vote is a product of a genuine conversation at home.
Right,
Diba? Yung talagang pinag-uusapan nyo na parang sinong iboboto, bakit ganon, ano ba yung mga concerns natin as a family, diba? What are projections in the future, ganyan. And if ever you come up with a unified vote as a household, as a neighborhood, diba?
Right.
Great. Siguro yun yung wag natin kakalimutan, na hindi natin tatanggalin yung conversation before agreements on votes on a household happen. Kasi yun nga, ganun. Again, babalik ako. Kapag tiningnan natin kung a unit of analysis mo is, okay, ang bulto ng boto ay household, ang bulto ng boto ay baluarte, nawawala yung category ng youth. Diba? So hanapin natin, ano ba yung, what kinds of issues represent the youth agenda.
Right.
A good way of looking at it is parang a bit of foresight, no? Foresight analysis, futures thinking. As far as we're concerned, you are the ones who will suffer through bad electoral turnouts, diba? Because you are, we're getting old.
Right.
Kami, pag ano kayo. So if the electoral turnout, you vote in not competent leaders and that entire scenario, then kayo yung again, it's transitionary hanggang magtrabaho kayo, magkaanak kayo, magpamilya kayo. Those are the implications of that. So magandang isipin na ano ba yung what are specific policy points, agenda, 'di ba, na gusto nating hanapin that represents the youth sensibilities of how you want your future to be. Is it jobs? 'Di ba? Kasi for instance, dahil nung pandemya, 'di ba? Dahil nung pandemya, talagang malala, no? Baka pwede nating
Pero kang
ipakita siya ng
PowerPoint at
konti.
yan.
Wait. Mag-ano ako ng konting slides.
Actually, we have a lot of questions already. Ito mga estudyante talaga.
Oo nga.
Diesel
Tapusin
yan.
ko lang siguro
Umiinit
itong
ng
point
umiinit.
na to.
Yeah, go ahead po.
Siguro tapusin lang natin itong point na to, di ba? Para why is it important to find yourself, di ba? In the trends and in the decisions for next year's vote. Kasi simulan natin ang kwento sa ano bang gusto ng Pilipino in general, di ba? Kung maaalala nyo, pre-pandemic, ginawa tong massive survey ng NEDA, di ba? Ano ba yung ambisyon? Ano yung hashtag ambisyon ng mga Pilipino? And the results are actually quite insightful kasi hindi naman, di ba, ano bang term ngayon ng mga kabataan? Yung hindi naman ilusyonada, di ba? Yung hindi naman ambisyosa. Yung hinihingi ng mga Pilipino. We Filipinos really just want a simple and comfortable life, which operationally means that you're earning enough, diba? That all your children are college educated, at least you have a car, diba? Very car-oriented kasi yung mga Pilipino, diba? Para sa atin, status symbol pag nagkaroon ng kotse, kaya medyo gano'n yung results. Have enough money for day-to-day needs, diba? Meron kang sariling bahay, lupa, diba? Or condo, kung yun yung type mo, kanya-kanyang trip, di ba? Meron kang, parang 30% of Filipinos would say that we also like to have businesses, or sufficient bandwidth to relax with family and friends. And occasional trips around the country. So yun lang naman daw yung gusto ng mga Pilipino noon. Pero dahil nung nagka-COVID-19, the change in personal quality of life talagang bumaba. Kita niyo yan, no? Talagang boom. Talagang galing dyan yung personal self-rated, di ba? If you compare your life before, where are you now? Like, sobrang COVID-19 impacted. Really, really negatively, no? And the issues haven't really been addressed. Like education, just putting, alam niyo yan, mga estudyante kayo, di ba? Health, access and delivery, talagang merong data na nagsasabi na nabawasan talaga yung mga check-up, diba? Especially mga kailangan ng specialist care, na wala yun because of the restrictions, etc. Self-rated poverty, medyo bumaba na siya ng konti. Because, from 2019, so medyo nag-hold siya ng 50% are saying that they're poor, borderline poor, etc.
Right.
Pero the joblessness is a problem.
Wow.
Diba? So kung halimbawa the strategies for joblessness of government, or you don't elect leaders who can address issues of joblessness, then this generation would have to live through the consequences of an economy that doesn't provide for jobs. Diba? Ganyan yung ating nakikita as a trend. And COVID-19 also increased personal borrowings. Gets niyo? So nawala ng trabaho, like 66% of the Filipinos representatively have turned to each other na mangutang. Diba? So parang kung naisip natin na if government response, diba, to the economy doesn't really change, then yung pangungutang na yan, that will keep on going and that has repercussions in the near and medium term future. Diba? Ganun ang implication niyan. However, just to be fair also, when you look at the indicators of the Philippines, no, compared to some of our neighboring countries or even the world indices of, percentage of cases per population or percentages of death, we're actually faring better than many, di ba? So kung halimbawa ang world average mo ay 2.24% ng cases per population of the population, ours is ganito lang, 'di ba? So dun sa analysis ng SWS, this one may webinar na naka-record, you can watch it in the SWS website. Ang sabi dito, the surveys show that in fact, when you look at performance, we are not necessarily left behind. Alam niyo yun? Ito nga, we're not necessarily left behind, but the perceptions of suffering, diba? And how we our future's orientation is really coming from our relationship with government policies, government reactions, diba? So kung bumababa yung optimism or feeling nyo nga, kailangan ko bang mangutang or meron bang is there something in store for me, etc. These are decisions that we do based on our reading, no, of how we perceive governance, right, to proceed later on. So are you hopeful? Tataya ka ba? Diba? Do you think if you had the choice, will you stay here or do you go? Alam mo yung mga ganyang decisions are reflective of our reading, our understanding of prospects of governance. So yun, siguro dun muna ako i-end yung part na yon, ano. So kung nagtatanong tayo na bakit importante na hanapin yung youth vote, kasi nandiyan tayo ngayon, papasok tayo sa election season, that the problems on joblessness, diba, that yung debt, rising levels of household debt, optimism in terms of do you have prospects? Diba? Can you access healthcare when you need it? Diba? Is education, diba? Are your children, are your siblings' education, the ones that they are getting here, is it the best kind of education that could be given to them? Diba? So kung itong mga kung ito yung mga issues, diba? Sana mag-isip tayo as youth, anong implication nito sa boto natin for next year? Diba? Saan natin hahanapin yung boses ng kabataan at ano ngayon ang magiging itsura ng youth decision?
Right. So ibig sabihin,
tumaba yung kwento natin, but I hope that makes sense.
It's actually very good, no? Well, we keep receiving questions, no? So in other words, what Czarina, what you're telling is, hindi na importante minsan hanapin yung youth vote. Importante kung suriin kung ano nga ba yung mga agenda na importante at mahalaga, nakasentro sa mga kabataan na isusulong ng mga kumakandidato, no?
Yes,
siguro maya
ito yung panahon na liligawan nila kayo.
Right.
Maligaw ka.
So suriin natin siya at ibahagi sa mga tao sa labas, no? Okay. Very good. I think at this point it's already 3:59. I still have a lot of questions, but I can park that out a little later, no? But we can now proceed with some of our invited students here to give their insights and perhaps questions to Czarina, no? Sige, let me first acknowledge these three excellent students. Naks naman, excellent. I don't know who wants to go first, but the tradition is let's go for the ladies first. May I acknowledge Miss Mary Charlene Thomas. Hi, Mary.
Hello po. So, good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible po ba?
Yes, rinig na rinig.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone, especially to our beloved speaker, Miss Czarina. So, first of all, I would like to commend you and thank you for giving us this opportunity to discuss a very relevant topic regarding the youth participation on the governance and the 2022 elections. So just like what you said po earlier, I've also researched and fact-checked that it is truly that 52% po ang nagko-comprise ng mga youth votes for this nation po. So I will just like to give more insights on what you said earlier. So first po yung informal spaces. So yung small electoral positions po from the SK to councilor halimbawa po. So naalala ko po kung gaano po kaganda yung mirror image natin kay Vico Soto. So what we can see from him is what good governance is all about. Being transparent, accountable, committed. He also listens to the nation, to his people, and most importantly, hindi po siya corrupt. Second po, yung sa youth advocates po on a certain advocacy. So for example po, nagkakaroon po tayo ng qualities or critics towards a candidate that has a particular advocacy. For example po, si Nery Colmenares, he sides with the LGBT community. So kapag mga LGBT, sure sila na kukunin nila si Nery Colmenares if ever kasi he also advocates for the youth. Second naman po si Lenny Robredo, she stood out to promote abante babae in a misogynistic society. So that is also one of the qualities that the youth looks for their candidate on the national elections. So in regards naman po sa participation ng youth towards the past issues such as the martial law, so nowadays po, I understand and also acknowledge na minsan na misunderstood tayo ng older generations because they thought that we are rebelling or sometimes we are targeted as the enemy kasi hindi natin na-experience po yung naranasan nila before. But resistance is power. And if we know that there is something wrong, we should correct it. So taken po dun sa nasabi mo po na kay River Maya na liwanag sa daan, parang uukit ka po ng bagong daan. So as a youth, it is our responsibility also to make our own destiny that would positively impact our society. So yung example po, yung nag-register po tayo ng vote, tapos nag-advocate tayo kung ano ba talaga yung tama. So the Filipino youth remains very hopeful towards the next governance despite the corruption scandals that affects our nation, especially to the COVID. And it was also a blessing in disguise po na nakita po natin na kung paano po mag-action ng government sa COVID kasi nakikita natin na hindi po sila nakikinig sa atin. And I think what the youth wants is a leader that listens to the people, from the experts, from what they see, because all we want naman po is para sa ikabubuti po ng nation at hindi i-challenge yung government into wrong face po. So lastly po, as a registered voter, I can see po na sobrang very participative po ang mga youth sa social media accounts. So from using their social media platforms for advocating their presidential bet, such as wearing their favorite colors, such as the pink for Lenny, ganun po. Tapos they also engage on a meaningful conversation with other people to that have a different political view and educate them from rightful sources. So makikita mo po na we all want a prospective future for our country. And the last thing po is that I felt that we can see future in our own eyes if because today the presidential candidates or any candidates hindi na po sila, some of them are not choosing na wait lang po. Parang sinasabi po natin na kapag bumoto po tayo ngayon, hindi na po tayo pipili ng lesser evil because right now, nakikita po natin na may mga deserving na pong candidates for their position. Again, thank you so much po and good afternoon po. Thank you.
Czarina, your reaction to that very insightful reaction. Right, heart.
Siguro may share lang ako, no, dagdagan ko yung na-share ni ano pangalan ng ating si Mary
Charlene,
no? Ayan, idagdagan ko sana ito, no. Ito kalalabas lang nito, kailan lang, from Pulse Asia, just to level of also yung ating understanding ng social media. Kapag tinignan mo siya, sa Pilipinas, kapag nung tinanong yung mga nasa survey na saan nyo nakukuha yung balita nyo, 'di ba? Hindi rin siya talaga sa social media. it's still with mainstream, especially television. Kita niyo yun? So, siguro ipagpalagay din lang natin ng konti, no? Yung sinasabi ko kaninang echo chambers. Maybe our understanding of social media engagement is this intense kasi ito yung echo chamber mo, 'di ba? Lahat ng kakilala mo, lahat ng yung level of ease mo, you thrive as a digital native, no? Yung bata kayo, talagang kinalakhan niyo na yung social media, etc. Ngunit kapag tiningnan natin yung kabuuan ng ating as the services, hindi majority ng mga Pilipino ang kumukuha ng kanilang information from social media. Siguro yun. So leveling off expectations din lang. That the social media, the world in social media that you encounter is not necessarily representative of the Philippines that we're dealing with. Okay? Labas din tayo ng konti, hindi ang social media feed mo ang representation ng Pilipinas. Makipag-usap ka sa mga driver, sa palengke, sa naggugupit na ngayong buhok, 'di ba? Sa pinagbibilhan mo ng soft drinks, kung ano man 'yan, 'di ba? Kung saan ka nabili ng face mask, face shield, etc. Yan, yung mga kausapin mo. Relate to people outside of social media because we are being prompted by the evidence that hinay hindi ang social media ang katotohanan ng Pilipinas. Yun ang una. Another thing that I'd like to show with regard to the social media thought is at least what the data shows in 2019, 45%
Czarina,
lang ng adults.
If you could make it bigger para mas mabasa namin yung yan.
Does it work?
There you go.
Natakot kasi ako mag-hang yung internet.
Okay.
Yun, so at least as far as the data in 2019, sabi niya parang only 45% of Filipino adults have Facebook, diba? And hindi siya lahat, diba? And nung tinanong din sila kung meron kang social media, paano mo siya ginagamit, diba?
Right.
Itong second table, diba? For political and social purposes. Ang lumabas dun sa data is that actually people go to social media to have fun. They just like things, diba? Or follow things because it's interesting. It's not common, diba? Pakita niyo yung pangalawa. It's not very common that people go to social media deliberately to follow elected officials, to engage people, and to enter into heated conversations most of the time, di ba? Social media is a space for entertainment. That's what do we do. So ganun din. Anong implication nito? Awat din, step back ng konti. Ito bang conversations that I'm seeing in my feed and the quality of conversations I'm having with people, is this representative of the discourse of the Filipino people? Hindi. Diba? Because even the ones that thrive in social media, usually, as the data shows, they usually just use it for entertainment purposes, and they're lurkers, diba? Tumitingin lang sila, they want to have fun. But let's see, maybe it's different. Maybe it's different next year. Again, this is 2019. Pero nga, ang pinapoint lang out natin dito is hinay din tayo sa ating assumptions na ang social media ay representative ng ating lipunan. And then the last one, in terms of social media, hindi natin maiiwasan. I think there's a question also about Cambridge Analytica earlier in the chat, no? Hindi rin natin maiiwasan yung tanong na, is it really a good space to engage, no? Especially, alam natin that in recent times, di ba, talagang merong harassment na nangyayari kapag napagdiskitahan ka, di ba? Pag na-center ka ng ganyan. The overall, no, the stats would say that even with this, Filipinos continue to feel free to speak out, and that's good. However, they do note that there's a risk in doing that. So siguro yung bakit ko to nilagay, no? Konting reflection on a personal level. To what extent do you also want to spend your time and energies entering into hostile conversations? Diba? It doesn't mean that you don't converse at all. Pero sinasabi din natin na minsan tingnan din natin, baka mas meaningful na ang kausapin mo ay yung bibilhan mo ng something dyan sa kabilang kanto. Diba?
Correct.
Or yung nagtitinda dyan somewhere. Baka those are the meaningful conversations. Saka, remember what I said earlier, people tend to agree, influence each other, and have meaningful conversations when you see the humanity in people in this way.
Correct. Mhm.
Diba? So, pili din tayo minsan, di ba? Parang, okay, may time ka, anong gagawin mo, di ba? Depende sa pandemic protocols mo, di ba? Huwag mo i-violate. Kung pwede ka din naman lumabas ng konti, and
Correct,
you
oo
feel
nga
that
eh.
that is a more meaningful conversation to do, then go. Di ba? Siguro yun yung mensahe natin. Number one, konting assessment kung paano ba natin naintindihan ang mundo ng social media. Is it representative of our world? And what are the implications of on our ways of relating, no, with our kapwa Pilipino. Kung okay na ba tayong mediated siya ng social media, or do we become more creative and find meaningful alternatives to have meaningful conversations.
And also understand that the social media, they also have a business model, di ba? They're there to gain profit. At kinikater nun yung mga may pera at may means. Okay. Sige, now
At saka 'di ba pag the analytics really just give you more of what you like.
Right. AI,
Na-testing ko na yan. Oo, na-testing ko na yun nung kaguluhan ng 2016. Di ba? Ang gulo ng social media, no?
Correct.
So sabi ko, testingin ko nga tong analytics na to ng Facebook at saka ng Twitter. Eh di like ako na like ng aso. Alam mo yung pets? Di ba? Like ako ng videos ng aso, ng pictures ng aso, ng follow Twitter ng aso. Abay later on, ang ligaligaya ng aking feed. Walang pag-aaway.
Puro na aso, no?
Pets at puro cuteness yung lumalabas. So tinitingnan ko, tingnan yung feed ko, cuteness. Parang meron akong make-believe world dito. So we're narrating that just to say that this is not representative necessarily of reality. There is some indication of where certain tensions are and where certain ecosystems are. Pero yun nga, bilang you are charting your own path, diba? Your generation's path, let's be creative. With how we exercise democratic conversations.
Right. Wow. Isang reaction pa lang yan mula sa isang estudyante, no? Let's hear it next from Castañeda. Hi, Wise. Good afternoon.
Galing kasi eh.
Good afternoon po.
Can
you hear me? Am
Yes.
I audible? Good afternoon po, Ma'am Czarina. I am Castañeda. I am a fourth-year AB Political Science as well as the President of the Liga ng mga Estudiantes Agampang Politika. And
wonderful.
I am very glad po that I participated in this event as a reactor kasi I have the opportunity to give my reactions about this topic because noong kasi pong nagtatry po kami magsulat ng thesis, marami po kami mga inexplore na possible na mga topics. Alam po yan ang thesis advisor namin si Sir Marshal. Na-delve rin po namin yung tokenism sa aming paghahanap ng mga resource material. And one thing po that I've read about tokenism is that yung mga youth po ay hindi nakakapag-participate ng maayos doon sa supposedly ng youth participation kasi older politicians don't deem youth participation as participation itself talaga. Because ang iniisip nila that youth participation, the SK, being SK Kagawad, being SK chairman or the like, it is just a training for them to be a full-fledged politician someday. And you shall follow us because we have the experience that you don't. You shall listen to us because kayo, mga bata pa kayo, you have greenhorns and uso po, di ba, sa mga Pilipino yung sasabihin na papunta ka pa lang, pabalik na ako. So I am imposing this to you that you follow my advice, that you follow my knowledge because you are just a youth. Yun nga po. And this really needs to change because kasi meron naman pong own sentiments yung youth as human beings na hindi po human beings or part of the society na hindi po alam ng mga older generations because of the generation gap nga. For example, ang youth po mas prone sila sa mental health problems compared doon sa older generations because as you said nga, we are part of the social media native. So, yan nga, kung mapaparating po namin yung sentiments ng youth as we are participating, as we are participating with our whole participation and not just trainees, then mas mapapabuti po ang lahat. And second po, sharing my self-experience po when you are discussing, second point, when you are discussing po doon sa social media, I really agree po and I'm really happy to hear na dapat ina-acknowledge yung ina-acknowledge din po natin kausapin yung mga nakikita natin dyan lang sa paligid. For example, may yung aking yung sa barbershop na palagi kong pinapagupitan. And I'm really glad to hear po na sabi ko, di ba po, sabi nila, BBM daw yung iboto. Ang sabi niya sa akin, then, bakit si BBM? Kung si BBM ang boboto, natuwa po ako na hindi si BBM yung boboto nila. Pero sabi niya, hindi si BBM kasi gusto ko, Bicol naman yung mag-progress. So, doon po nakapag-reflect po ako doon sa point na yun na hindi siya dahil sa mga nagawa ni Lenny or sa nagawa ni BBM, but because na taga Bicol si Lenny and we are again going to that faction na mga faction na thinking like taga Bicol ako, dapat taga Bicol ang manalo, and not based on principle, because yun po, di ba, ang isa sa pinaka mga malalaking problema ng Pilipinas is that we don't have principle-based party systems. We just have kung ano yung mga pamilya, yun yung boboto natin. And next po is, third point po about the talk is that yung sa SK, kung di ba nabanggit po natin, we are not really using the full potential of SK. Because ang anong ginagawa natin, ang iba nga po hindi alam kung anong pangalan ng SK chairman nila. Me personally, hindi ko kilala kung sinong SK chairman namin. And, di ba, the system sana is very beautiful. Merong SK Kagawad, SK Chairman, SK Federation President, papuntang provincial level. But hindi po napaparating yung sentiments ng youth kasi nga they are not themselves doing consultations to the youth. So what we can do is that I think we shall make an effort ourselves to be creative nga, sabi ni ma'am, kung paano tayo makakapag-participate kasi let us just admit it. Ayokong sumuko pero masyado pang malayo ang Pilipinas sa magandang sistema. Yun lamang po. Thank you po.
Naku, huwag ka susuko. Bata-bata mo pa, kalahati ka yata na age ko. Diyos ko,
Kaya nga,
magkakasama tayo dito. Hindi, mag-feedback lang ako siguro on two things, no? Yung una is about yung ang bata mo pa, 'di ba? Yung kino-compromise yung ability mo to participate because you are seen as too young, too, 'di ba, incapable of doing this. I would say no, and I would cite innovative, creative examples in other countries. Na ang bottom line is that groups that are trying to find their voice, yung sinabi ko kanina, you imagine ano ba yung resources mo? What do you have? What gives you agency? Diba? And you capitalize on that for creative engagement. Anong ibig sabihin nito? What if, i-consider natin yung ginagawa sa ibang bansa, parang variations of open legislation. What if ipunin natin itong lahat ng mga re-electionists at tingnan natin yung kanilang mga final na bill sa sanggunian? Diba? Or mga programa nitong mga executive, diba? Minsan nga iniisip mo, nasa legislative sila, bakit ang dami nilang programa? Diba dapat gumagawa sila ng batas? Oops.
Correct.
Diba? So ano natin? Inventaryohin natin. Tapos isubject nyo sa massive likes. Gawin yung TikTok. Diba? Gawin yung be creative. Diba? Na parang, ito, diba? Parang markahan natin sila. Kaming mga estudyante, alam namin ang pakiramdam nang minamarkahan kami. So, hukayin natin ang mga final na mga to at gawin nating TikTok, diba? O, markahan nyo ngayon yung mga yan. I'm just saying that, there are creative ways within your capacities, within your resources that can change the game of how the perception of, politics for next year can happen. Diba? Sabihin na natin, okay, hindi lahat nasa social media, hindi nasa ganun. Oh, what if old school, gawa kayo ng mga pamphlet, di ba? Gawa kayo ng, hindi ko alam kung anong ginagawa ngayon ba. Medyo malayo na yata ako sa age group na yon. But again, I guess the challenge there is that if you are being cornered and the indicators of success, no? Yung pang sasabing, hindi mo yan kayang gawin kasi kami lang, di ba? Only our indicators of influence and success are legitimate. Then question that, di ba? Parang, sige, kung yan yung termino mo ng kung ano yung influence, mag-iisip kami ng mga paraan ng language, ng modality na pasok at swak, 'di ba, sa panlasa naming mga kabataan, and we will have our conversations. And when we identify our agenda and we consolidate what we want, 'di ba, don't you dare, 'di ba, turn your eyes away from the 52%, no? Hanapin mo yung local population percentage sa inyo. Don't you dare turn away from our demographic. We are a real electoral group. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? Diba? So, I guess it's a shift of perspective. Magpapaapi ka, diba? Ano ka, telenovela, ganyan, diba? Bida-bidahan sa drama. Hindi. Diba? Turn the terms around and find how you can exercise your agency based on your own terms. Siguro yun ang una. Pangalawa, yung boboto dahil Bicol, 'di ba? Parang hindi naman pala sila boboto dahil dahil issue based, pero dahil pa rin balwarte pa rin, parang ganoon pa rin. Part of it is that change management will always tell us na walang drastic changes. Ano 'yan? Suntok sa buwan. Diba? In reality, there is a process. Mabagal ang reforms, diba? And ganun din if we're trying to look at electoral consciousness, diba? Political consciousness. Siguro, I would say, kung ako yung nasa posisyon mo, diba? Sasabihin na, sige, ito yung iboboto ko, pero dahil taga dito kasi siya. Sabihin mo, okay din naman po yun. Pero pag-usapan natin din kung ano yung mga ginawa. So, di ba, parang maganda nga yun kasi medyo aligned na kayo ng baseline. Di ba? Now, try to elevate now the conversation. Bigyan mo siya ng sasabihin so that yung sinasabi kasi yung isa yung iboto, di ba? Bigyan mo ngayon siya. Share what this person who's already buying in to what your preference is. Bigyan mo siya na sasabihin niya so that later on when this person faces his or her peers nang galing sa'yo yung sasabihin niya, ay hindi lang ito yung choice ko dahil balwarte, dahil ganyan. Alam ko din at kaya kong i-cite na may mga ganito pang other reasons. I hope I'm trying to paint a picture of what kinds of creative, really relational approaches. And I hope it becomes more concrete when we say that you find the humanity in every conversation. Find the person beyond the words and beyond the topics and etc. No? And it, who knows, it might be the game changer that you, with your creativity and energy, could give for next year. Ayun. So wag kang ma-discourage, grabe oy. Ano lang, push lang.
Chill lang.
When you're feeling down, ano naman tayo, one big Ateneo community, di ba? You always find mentors, you always go back to your friends to have good discussions, di ba? Parang we know that as Ateneans, we have a home and safe spaces to process our thoughts and
right. Okay. Maraming salamat din, Wise. Okay. We have a lot of questions already and insights, no.
Oo nga,
di ba? Basa lang ako ng ilan kasi I think they have really interesting thoughts to say, sabi dito. Later na yung question, siguro yung mga share lang nila na insight. Halimbawa, from Johannes Unana. Hi Johannes, how are you in Cavite? I agree po ma'am, matapos ang sunod-sunurang bardagulan and exchange of political hot takes sa Twitter this past few days or weeks, wala itong material impact. Mahalaga pa rin lumabas or tumapak at magdiskurso on the ground. Maraming salamat, no? And the rest kasi questions na siguro sa mamaya babasahin natin yan. And now, let's proceed to our last student reactor, no? Al Florence Albo. Hi Al, good afternoon.
Ayan po. Good afternoon, magandang araw po. Naririnig po ba ako?
Yes, on.
Yes.
Siguro before ako magsimula sa aking reaction, siguro pagbati muna kay Ma'am Czarina because I think yung topics is really suited because we're already on the heat of the campaign period. So yun from the inside kanina, like malala na ang bargadulan sa politika, so parang merong mas mangingibabaw yun na yung diskurso sa election. So siguro po in terms of dun sa nakuha ko sa parang initial discussion kanina, parang sa konteksto kasi ng 2022, parang pwede natin pwede natin ilagay sa konteksto na sa 2022, yan din yung taon na gagraduate yung unang batch ng K-12 students. So merong bulk ngayon ng gagraduate na maghahanap ng trabaho. As a education major, so mahalagang aspeto to ng usapan para sa akin. So kung ilalagay natin dun sa perspektibong yun, dun sa 6 na taon na manunungkulan yung bagong presidente o yung bagong gobyerno, parang may direct impact siya dun sa buhay ng mga bagong graduates kung sakali maghahanap sila ng bagong trabaho, na social security, social services, mga pabahayan, ganyan. So, sa tingin ko, like, mahalagang pag-isipan yun ng kabataan ngayon na yung botong ibibigay nila, parang hindi lang siya abstract thought na ay boboto ko kasi ganito. Kailangan rin isipin na yung boto mo, meron siyang direct impact dun sa magiging buhay mo, sa buhay ng kasi yung 6 years na yun, mahaba yun. Like, pwede kang magka-pamilya doon, pwede kang lumabas ng bansa, marami kang gagawing desisyon yun. So yung 6 years na yun, parang very crucial siya. And kumbaga, kung sa perspektibo namin bilang kabataan, siguro pwede namin tawagin yung election na to become one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime. Especially that kung maharap pa tayo sa COVID-19, hindi pa tapos ang COVID-19, and most often that not, we'll go to our polling places on May still wearing face masks. So parang aside from the issues on unemployment, political dynasty, incompetence in government, yung COVID-19 pa rin yung parang mangingibabaw na issue. Saka yung second point na parang very interesting for me is yung amount of young voters that will register in this election, which amounts to 52%. While nagsasalita si Ma'am Czarina kanina, I tried to look at the results from the previous election. So if in parallelism, if Duterte won 42% of the vote in 2016, so ibig sabihin parang battleground demographic yung youth vote in terms of dictating who wins the election. Siguro not in a sense na, pero yung other idea pa is, sa Philippines pala, wala tayong youth vote. Like, wala tayong concept of youth vote. Like, kung compare natin sa US or other mature democracies, like, yung nangyari nung sa election sa 2020, ayun, wala pa po nga. Parang, meron ng sense of enthusiasm or meron ng agenda within the youth or parang meron ng consensus sa kanya. So, I think, from the idea na parang baka, maybe this time, magkaroon na ng genuine or solid youth vote sa Philippines, I think like what Mama said, that can be an exciting opportunity for our history. But I think lastly po, in terms of social media, siguro I think that's the most common platform na ginagamit ng youth ngayon in terms of airing their political thoughts. Siguro I would just like to reiterate na may tendency po kasi of social media to become an echo chamber of conversations, in a sense na like hindi naman reflective yung diskurso sa social media sa totoong nangyayari sa other parts ng electorate, like sa probinsya, citing na hindi naman like very accessible pa ang internet, and from the Pulse Asia survey, parang it's still the traditional media yung parang pinaka-forefront na way of political campaigning. But also to be realistic, parang siguro nakakaubos rin ng energy or medyo in times na very heightened ang political discussion. Siguro if like nagsisimula ka pa lang to be politically or maging mulat sa like sitwasyon ng bansa, parang it's a very overwhelming situation for you to like, kaya if kausapin mo lang magulang mo or kausapin mo lang kapatid mo about on political discussion, it's really a very taxing thing to do because hindi naman yan usapan na abot lang ng isang oras, like kung nagpa-family dinner kayo or nanonood kayo ng balita, that conversation will always arise and arise. So siguro yung challenge for the youth right now is to go out of social media, but go out of social media or talk to actual people na parang makausap natin sila face to face. And at the same time siguro, meron dapat emphasis na yung diskurso mangyayari in a civil and a diplomatic manner. In a sense na hindi natin i-impose sa kanila yung paniniwala natin, pero kukunin natin yung kwento nila in a sense na kukunin natin kung bakit sila naniniwala dito at try natin i-relate yung parang experiences natin with each other. Siguro to add lang what Ma'am said, siguro another prerequisite of democracy, aside from this then, is arriving at a consensus. So parang although hindi naman kasi mawawala sa demokrasya ang political and differences of opinion, but may mga kailangan tayong kumbaga non-negotiable agreements sa demokrasya, like respecting for human rights, respecting for electoral processes, and things like that. But at the same time, siguro yung role also of the youth to make sure na yung youth agenda ma-reflect siya sa mainstream politics. Siguro it stems na rin po on the idea na wala tayong youth po. So parang kung sa perspektibo ng isang politiko, wala kang masyadong incentive to listen to them is because hindi naman siya mag-turn out ng vote sa'yo. So compared to other social demographics. So parang I think hindi ako political analyst to say na may youth vote na ba or wala. Pero siguro that can be a stepping stone na parang mas-solidify na yung youth, yung Filipino as an electorate para at least meron na tayong representation into the platforms of mainstream politicians in terms of yun, pag during elections and ganyan. And yun nga, parang hindi pa kasi tangent yung ano natin, yung parang priorities natin, parang tayo on mental health, on LGBT rights. So I think that could be a stepping stone. This election or maybe succeed or maybe the events of this year or this election could be like a stepping stone para sa atin to like for the youth vote to solidify and for the voice of the youth in governance to be more heard in Philippine governance. So I think yan lamang po. Maraming salamat.
Wow. Al, thank you.
Pwede bang
Czarina.
Pwede bang magturo sa Ateneo Dinaga para masaya yung mga estudyante dyan
Magaling
Parang
Oo.
para magtatapon yata ako ng A. Parang galing. Okay. I appreciate it very much, no? And I'd like to pick up on something that Al said, no? Democracy is both agreement setting and spaces for dissent. Tama yun. Kasi kapag pinilit mo yung isang grupo na pumayag sa gusto mo, di parang hine-hegemonize mo siya, di ba? Parang ine-empower mo din siya at hinaharas mo din siya kasi gusto mong pumayag sila sa kung anong gusto mo. So what now? Siguro ang magandang tingnan nyo dito, di ba? Mag-Google search kayo. Parang you think about search for deliberative democracy. Ano ba yung deliberation, di ba? In practices in other countries, yung mga democratic innovations nila ng open town halls, di ba? Or yung mga participatory budgeting sa ibang bansa, mga ganyan. Ang nagiging some of the key points is you first agree with a future's vision. Napaka-importante yun. So it becomes parang a solution-seeking conversation instead of, kung anumang others na, pagalingan lang ba yan, ideologizing and philosophizing. Medyo mahirap pagtugma-tugmain yung mga tao, no? Lalo yung mga Pilipino. Magaling tayo sa ganyang mga usapan. So if we can imagine our conversations that are framed towards, gaya na sinabi ni Al, 6 years. Diba? Sabi niya nga, pwedeng mag-asawa ka dyan, magkapamilya ka, diba? Pwede, ang dami mo decisions na gagawin within that 6 years. So start that conversation. Maybe if you are finding yourself in hostile, conversations, try mo kayang i-shift. Na parang, teka lang, di ba? Parang ang init mo naman, paano ba tawagan ngayon? Parang, di ba nung panahon natin, Marshal, parang mga tol, pre, di ba? Ganyan. Ano ba tawagan nila ngayon?
Parichong, dude.
Ang mga ganun, okay. Dude, oo nga. Okay, mga
diba?
Atenis na nga pala to. Dude, chong. Okay.
Dude, chong tayo.
Di ba? Parang, teka lang, dude, ang init mo naman. Ano bang gusto mo mangyari in the next 5 years? Ask a genuine question. Try mo lang. Diba? Because when again, ito yung mga conversation shifters that try to find, if not a commonality, just to put you in the same mind space. That if we can imagine our conversations that are leading towards a shared future, a shared vision of what a good life could be, baka mas maganda yung usapan na kalalabasan. Diba? Baka hindi siya maging usapan ng kulay, saan mo ba narinig, saan mo ba nakuha yung information na yan. Diba? Hindi siya parang checking and each other, but turn towards the horizon and say, what do we want in that future? I think that could be a very potent conversation. And yeah. So yun, wag niyong pilitin din ha, bang nakikipag-usap kayo, wag niyong pilitin din na pumayag sa inyo, Diyos ko, kaya din nasasabihin na, kayo kasi, di ba, ganun yung sinasabi, kayo kasi, nagmamagaling kayo, ganyan. So it doesn't really help.
At yung yung sinabi mo kanina, di ba? That the participation of youth is not just reduced during the election. No, dapat kasama talaga sa ang youth, no, sa lahat ng proseso. Kaya nga sinasabi minsan ng mga observers sa ibang bansa na ang Pilipinas is voting specialist. Aktibo lang tayo sa ating mga political opinions kapag malapit na ang eleksyon. Pero kapag quote-unquote normal days or after election, medyo nagwi-wane yung yung interest in talking about politics. Siguro
kaya tatahi ko din siya dun sa point natin kanina that it's really time to reimagine public engagement at wala talagang ibang group na mag-reimaginean kundi ang youth. Parang bakit? Kasi civic engagement, no? 'Di ba? Paghiwalayin natin yung electoral engagement doon sa civic engagement, which is your day-to-day associational life with civil society. Talagang sinasabi na merong epekto yung kahirapan, merong epekto yung mental health, 'di ba? Or yung collective scenarios, yung collective experience. Kasi totoo naman in practical terms, tanggalin natin yung big concepts, 'di ba? Anong gagawin mo? Magtatrabaho ka o anong term nyo kanina? Bardagulan ka sa Facebook. Syempre, diba? Unahin mo yung pag-aaral mo, unahin mo yung pagtatrabaho mo because mas urgent yun, mas real yung implications doon. So totoo, let's acknowledge that, diba? That the quality of life is a determinant then of how much you can give to the civic space. Okay, yan. There. So ano ngayon anong implication nun? That's why I'm saying that maybe the solution to that reality is we find creative ways to meet people where they are. Diba? Siguro hindi 'di ba? Parang of course it's always ideal to say that you draw them out, 'di ba? Na tanggalin natin yung bystander effect, that we explain to them what's at stake so they have to be engaged all the time. That's ideal but not practical, di ba? So ano kaya yung mga paraan so that we can bring meaningful governance conversations to where people are taking into account the reality of their day-to-day lives. Diba? Kaya nga siguro importante yon. Ang dami-dami ko na ding mga estudyante at mga kakilala na nagkukwento sa social media na alam nyo, trinay kong kausapin yung nagtitinda doon sa nearby and it was mind-blowing experience. Baka nga because it's breaking the mold of of what we do every day. We bring that conversation to them while they are selling their wares. Diba? Hindi natin hinihingi na ikaw ang maging daan, 'di ba? O babalik tayo kay River Maya, 'di ba? Kailangan mo umukit ng bagong daan, 'di ba? Because we have to acknowledge also that what has worked in the past in terms of civic engagement and reforms may not be the most effective models anymore. There's pandemic, there's social media, there's so many new things that we don't really understand completely. But if there's anyone that I will bet on to make sense of this and ride with these changes as we go into the future, hindi na yung age namin ni Marshal, taga-support na lang kami. Susuporta kami. Pero na yon, kayo na yon, diba? So go out there and it's your
Oo.
There.
Kaya nga, yung format natin ng online event ngayon is not the typical, ito yung kailangan yung matutunan, ito yung dapat yung
Gusto nyo
alalahanin.
ba
It's more conversational. Yeah, because diba, that's how we want to influence people. Because if we speak na parang tunog elitista, it will be hard for halimbawa sa inyo na pakinggan kami because you think that we are self-righteous, monopolizing the knowledge or wisdom. No, it's not like that. No, we have to reimagine how we do things. Kasi iba na yung panahon ngayon, right? Iba na rin ang priorities ng mga kabataan.
Amplify ko yung point na yun ni Marshal. Di ba parang sana ang feeling nyo after this conversation, close tayo, di ba? So kung makikita nyo ako somewhere, malay mo after pandemic, di ba? Or makita nyo parang, ay, ikaw yung nag-talk sa amin noon before. Babatiin natin na isa't isa. After this conversation, it feels, hopefully, you feel that this is a real conversation, di ba? You're not being talked down on. I don't think anyone likes to be talked down on.
Correct.
So yun, friends na tayo.
Speaking of friends, we shall now entertain the questions of our friends watching us over YouTube and here sa Zoom, no. We are now opening the open forum. So we have first the question number 1. This is, I don't know the name. Sorry, hindi na mention. Well, the question is, you mentioned po na it's good to participate in youth groups and even to a larger scale like party list or a party list, and you even encourage us to be active in that respect. But you also mentioned that it's good to be autonomous. My question is, what do you think about groups, affiliations on politics in general? Are they better off than being an individual entity? That's the question coming from...
Sasagutin ko na ba? Medyo okay. I'll try to be as brief as I can. No? Medyo loaded yung question. Ang daming question within the question. No? So, hima-himayin natin. No? Ang una is, what do I think about affiliating with groups? Kailangan nyo yun. Kailangan nyo yun. Yun nga yung civil society, associational life. And we're not just talking about political groups. Yung mga youth, yung mga school orgs nyo, o kaming mga age namin ni Marshal, yung tipo mga homeowners association, di ba? Yung mga pet owners association.
Of Manila. Okay.
Lahat, mga, di ba, mga plantitas of ganyan. These are all associational activities because you find groups that you form relationships with and have conversations and do civic things with, diba? So hindi kailangan, so siguro unang clarification is that it doesn't have to be political all the time, diba? But if you choose to be affiliated with political groups, go ahead. That is needed also. Because part of the argument of Philippine politics not maturing is that there is no incentive for good people to take on the direct challenge of the difficulties of the system. Diba? Binanggit nyo kanina si Vico Soto, diba? That he's doing well. FYI, naging estudyante ko siya nung bata pa siya sa Ateneo o college pa siya. Pero wala akong kinalaman sa kanyang success.
Senior pa siya.
Yeah. Pero yun, but what makes him interesting as a political entity, as a political actor? Because he comes not as an individual, but he brings with him the support of civil society groups, of the academe, of the private sector. He does things in a very bridging leadership, participatory approach. He tries to make things as transparent as possible. So hindi siya nag-iisa, di ba? Hindi siya individual or hindi siya nag-engage sa government, bringing lofty ideas or fighting everything like it was impossible, diba? Meron din siyang strategy at yung strategy ng participation and everything is working for him. So siguro yon, no? If you want to engage in politics, maybe learn from how Vico is doing it. Engage with others who are like-minded, want to reform, and can walk with you throughout, diba? And then maybe that's the element there, no? Siguro mahirap imaginein yung reform kung youth ka dun sa national. Lahat naman kahit naman magsasaka ka, kababaihan, LGBTQ, talagang national is national.
Right.
But what if we also differentiate how we try to influence different governance spaces? Doon kami nagsimula kanina ni Marshal, di ba? Baka merong local spaces for you to
Correct.
start with. Maybe you can influence your local governments while while engaging on a larger discussion abroad. Pero mas nakafocus ka dito. So ganun, strategy also kung saan ba sa palagay nyo yung political opportunities nga that are available to you. Now, the other one is ano yung autonomy, di ba? Liwanagin ko, di ba? The concept of autonomy in terms of representation and engagement in governance, hindi siya autonomy na wala kang kakampi, di ba? Na wala kang affiliation. Right. It's the autonomy of the agenda. Okay. Medyo magtuteorya tayo ng konti ha, step back ng konti, di ba? Ano ang public space, di ba? The public space, imagine the Roman Forum. Mga Atenista naman mga, di ba? Imagine the Roman Forum, imagine the spaces where people really debate and engage and transact, diba? Ang dinadala mo doon ay representative of what you think is the public good. Okay, diba? Ano na tayo natin isa, diba? Ang pinag-aanahan natin is ano ba ang versions natin ng public good. Now, saan pumapasok yung autonomy? Kung ang paningin mo na agenda ng gobyerno ay sumusunod lang sa kung ano ang sinasabi sa iyo ng isang mas powerful entity, then you are not representing what is the public good of your experience, of your reality, and etc. The autonomy is in the content. The autonomy is in the agenda. At least that's where it starts, di ba? Pero hindi din ibig sabihin na dahil lang meron kang independent agenda na hindi ka co-opted, ay hindi ka makikipag-relate to people and groups who may be political and who may be opposing to what you want. Diba? That's the engagement of politics, diba? There is conflict, there is deliberation, there are debates. Talagang ganun yon. And part of the maturity of a citizenship, of a nation, is for people to be able to do these conversations while still knowing that at the end of the day, we are one nation. Isa tayong bayan. Diba? That trying to get through the hardest of times. We can disagree on this, but maybe, diba, we can agree on other things, etc., etc., etc. Siguro yun, no? So, hindi siya autonomy na hindi ka makikipag-engage sa mga ayaw mo ever. Ano siya, that's part of the public relationship engagement, diba? Your engagement with the political, diba? Ano ang political yon? It's there. So ano na tayo? Okay lang naman yan.
Nag-crash course sa politics, no? That's really good. That question, by the way, is from Gabriel Rian. Okay. Sige, next question tayo.
Pero maganda yun na naklarify yun. Ano yun? Heart yun.
Oo nga eh. Okay. So we have, yung pangalawang question kasi somehow you answered already, no? The analytical, the key let's answer the question number 3. What if yung youth organization po is established by the local government and as the time goes by po na napopoliticize na? What should the youth organization do para kumawala sa ganyang pamamalakad without compromising po their budget or projects? Kasi po, having that political will po is not enough if you are treated as quote-unquote youth lang.
Alam mo, kaya natin mag 3-hour session.
Kaya nga ang daming layers ng question.
Ano siya, political advocacy, no? Parang this is now like a question of lobbying and political advocacy and political entrepreneurship, etc. Like, how do you lobby if you are coming from the marginalized side, diba? Parang what if you're not like the dominant player in this space? siguro what I can say is ano yung mga lessons from other models, no, sa democratic innovations and civil society exercises in ours and experiences in other countries. Una, organization is very important, no? Nabanggit natin yung kanina, affiliate with groups, affiliate with allies, diba? Who will also support what you want, because there is still power in numbers, diba? That other sectors who share your agenda and your priorities are willing to stand by you in that lobby, diba? In that advocacy. That's number one. Number two, as with anything, no, hindi lang sa politika, there's also nga the proof of concept. May nagbanggit nun kanina, 'di ba? Parang kailangan mo rin munang pasampulan, 'di ba? Na parang kasi nga kung if you will not, you have to show why they have to listen to you.
Right.
'Di ba? So, paano 'to nagagawa? Maybe you can do a project that will show numbers, or maybe you can, I don't know, again, be creative. But the point that I'm trying to make here is proof of concept. Think about paano ba tayo magiging players sa agenda setting, di ba? Do we write? Do we engage media? Do we form our own spaces? Do we create songs and TikToks and etc.? How do we make a mark? No? How do we carve out spaces for what we want to say? In literature, this is called claimed spaces, di ba? Meron kang closed spaces, yung hindi ka makapasok. Meron kang invited spaces, yung filtered kung ano yung inclusion, exclusion. But there is always an opportunity for claimed spaces that maybe it's not that defined before, but because you transform it, no? You use that whatever platform or modality or ano, then make it yours. Ano yung pwede natin maging example dito? Recently, di ba, yung mga community pantry. Kung natatandaan nyo. Di ba, sa kasagsagan ng walang trabaho at gutom, we showed everyone, even to ourselves, di ba, na it doesn't have to be complicated to truly help each other. Now we create, diba, the people created something so innovative, something that's so replicable, and people found agency na kaya ko din yung gawin. I can be a part of that. I don't have to be exceedingly, diba, effortful, diba? Hindi siya, ano, I can do that as well. So what if we can come up with these more of these kinds of experiments, small scale, meaningful, people can come in, participate, and yeah, diba? And the end of it is a proof of concept. We are here. We are standing by a message that we don't want anyone na nagugutom. We need public resources, diba, to be channeled to all these people who line up so long and diba, mahaba at matagal na pilahan dahil kailangan lang nilang kumain every day. So gets niyo, parang I'm trying to paint a picture para sana it triggers your imagination, no? Ano nga ba yung mga ganong klaseng posibleng innovation that may be simple but real, relational, inclusive, and again shows that you who are part of this cannot be disregarded. Diba?
Right.
Proof of concept. And then many other things. Binanggit ko kanina, maybe you can look at political entrepreneurship. You can also search for political opportunity structures, sina Sidney Taro. Ano lang yan, Google lang yan, di ba? Magaling tayo. yung legit sources, ano?
Okay.
Yan. Para may mga ma-enrich, no, yung ating mga binabasa din on that.
Right.
Hala, pinapagsigil na tayo, Marshal.
Oo nga eh. I think we can still, I don't know, kasi meron pang isang magandang question dito, no. I think you can also, after this, we can give your final thought.
Puputulin ba tayo exactly at 5 o'clock? Para ba itong TV na parang, okay, cut the commercial.
Hindi naman. Because I think the viewers can also agree with me that the conversation is really getting interesting. No? Sige, let's, that by the way, that question is from Jovelyn Competente. Now let's move on to our last question from Angela Regondola. She's asking, how true is it po that we actually base our, parang Marites ano, how true is it that we actually base our votes and political choices on our feelings and not our intellect? If it is true
Ang
po, what
galing!
are the diverse
Wonderful.
effects of this? Like we are more emotional than rational, parang ganun ata. Czarina.
Sunny, pagturuan mo na ako sa Ateneo Dinaga. I love your students. Galing. Okay, this is wonderful, no? Search nyo din, tribalist culture. The political tribes. Hanapin nyo yan. Because that question speaks to that reality. Noong lumabas yung mga kwento ng Cambridge Analytica, and we actually now have data about how people get influenced and cluster together on certain opinions, etc. Ang nakita talaga nun is that people really decide based on how they feel, or people tend to open up to you, 'di ba? Kung halimbawa you're influencing, 'di ba? Yun yung gusto, 'di ba? Kasi nga, Cambridge Analytica, gusto nila maimpluwensyahan ka kung ano yung boto mo, ano yung gusto mo, 'di ba? Pagbebentahan ka ng produkto, pagbebentahan ka ng politiko, ganyan. So, apparently in that influencing, the decision na kumagat or not is based really on how that experience makes you feel. And if you think about it, it's very practical, no? Kasi parang you stay within the confines and comforts of your tribe. Be comfortable. Again, your tribe is your emotional echo chamber.
Right.
Diba? That you feel good inside these spaces. And anong nangyayari nun, you let your critical lens down. 'Di ba? Alam niyo mga kabataan, 'di ba kapag iniibig mo na, parang hindi mo na masyadong 'di ba? Ayan, tapos mamaya basta 'yon, 'di ba? Magtatagal tayo kapag tinuro natin ng kwento. Pero gets niyo yung kwento, 'di ba? When you feel emotionally affirmed. May tinamaan daw. Ay, grabe. Di ba, when you feel emotionally affirmed, you tend to let your guard down. And that's when they feed you everything they need to feed you. They make you feel that you're affirmed, that your echo chamber is fine, you're having the correct kind of thoughts and emotions, kasi yun lang yung iniikot-ikot nila sa'yo. Diba? But, ano ngayon yung pwede nating, if that is what we're against, diba? If we're against machines and industries that are built to, napanood niyo ba yung Inception, di ba? Yung to rewire your mind and make you feel falsely secure under the confines of your tribes and your echo chambers. Anong implication nun sa atin? Isa kanina nabanggit natin, di ba, na konting step back and say na, okay, ito yung echo chamber ko, I feel okay in this tribe, pero hindi ito ang kabuuan ng lipunan, di ba? Una, an acknowledgement and an awareness that yes, this is my tribe, but I will not represent the world only in the confines of this reality, di ba? Una. Pangalawa ngayon, if we are being inception, di ba, nire-rewire yung mga preferences natin because they're toying with our emotions and relationships, then let's fight them with better and more meaningful relationships that are not fabricated, that are real. Di ba? Maybe we don't have that kind of industry, maybe we don't have that kind of machinery, but walang kahit na ano sa social media ang tatalo doon sa maybe may kasambahay ka o baka meron kang kapitbahay dyan, di ba? Na minsan puntahan mo, dalhan mo ng pagkain, di ba? Kung papansit ka, malay mo birthday mo, di ba? What if you reach out to your neighbors, to familiar people who you've never really talked with before? Tingnan natin kung anong galing na social media dyan at makipag-usap ka nila and say that, lagi ko po kayo nakikita, ano po bang pangalan niyo? Alam mo yun, be seen, because that is an experience, and help people feel seen. That is not an experience that you get genuinely from social media. And that's why people go to TikTok, di ba? People want to be seen. What if we can help and we can facilitate relationships that are not, again, fabricated by these things.
And these are not rocket science.
Sobrang ganda nun. True. Diba? You don't have to be the big data analyst or whatsoever,
Correct.
diba?
It all boils down to being
One
human
day
and
there will
understanding.
Correct.
Oo nga.
One day there will be a reckoning to these kinds of people, no, who have abused us all for our emotional tendencies. One day there will be a reckoning for this. But within the confines of what we can do every day, the people that we can reach, the little stretch of our relationships that we can do, gawin natin yun. Gawin natin yun. Tingnan natin, no? Again, I think today is all about a conversation na bakit hindi? Malay mo naman, di ba? May youth vote ba? Malay mo next year. Ang dami, parang all cards, parang so many cards against us, di ba? Big industries, big mechanisms, and etc. Malay mo naman, we can do it small, and we can do it real, and we can be creative on how we want our practices of citizenship and engagement to be. What if we start thinking, nabawasan ko kaya yung social media ko at makipag-usap ako sa aking mga pinsan, sa aking kapatid. Kanina may magsabi nun, di ba? Parang pinag-iusapan nyo ba siya sa bahay habang nagdi-dinner kayo? Pinag-uusapan nyo ba siya sa bahay habang nanonood ng balita? Do you have that kind of conversations? I think that's a really wonderful conversation to have. Maybe kahit yung kapatid mo muna, di ba? Or someone, di ba? Or yung kung may kasambahay ka nga, kausapin mo, malay mo, di ba? Madaming chismis. Start with those things. Malay mo. Di ba? We're at that, para siyang Star Trek, no? We're entering the final frontier, di ba? Sige, hindi niyo nakilala yung Star Trek. Mag-isip ako ng example. Parang, para tayong MCU. Okay? Parang lalaban tayo ng endgame. Di ba? We know that hindi lang siya forward-looking na shaping a future, because, di ba, sa laban nila sa endgame, they also want to correct what has been destroyed in the process. We know that 2016, 2019, I mean, these past elections haven't been kind. These haven't been good experiences, diba? Bardagulan every day, to borrow your language. What if we can do endgame the way endgame does, diba?
Right. Yeah.
Portals everywhere, and just every person with every small fight and every initiative to just get things going.
Yeah.
Malay natin.
And what's good about those things that you mentioned, na talagang may magagawa kahit isa sa atin, ano? Hindi man ganun kalaki, pero may impact, right? Yeah, but again, emphasizing the yung sabi mo kanina, yung allyship, yung what is that? Sorry, sino yun? Well, ang importante, no, meron tayong malalapitang grupo. Meron tayong mahahanap na allies somewhere along that journey. At higit sa lahat, meron tayong kakayahan. No? Meron tayong kakayahan na mag-participate politically, no, na magbibigay daan sa mas positive or more positive outcomes, no. And ito ay hindi natatapos at nag-uumpisa tuwing election o pagpili ng leader, no. Yeah, your final words, Czarina, to end this, I call it now a virtual town hall with students.
Yeah. Alam niyo bang wala pa akong tulog?
Oh no! Thank you for your time.
Wala pa akong tulog, saka tagtad yung araw ko ng meeting. But this conversation has been just wonderful.
Wow.
Just wonderful. And I am very happy to have met you, Albi, virtually. And know that no matter what people say to you, kapag meron kang pinaglalaban para sa kagandahan ng ating bansa, tapos minamaliit ka, feeling mo wala nang nangyayari, isipin nyo lagi, hindi kayo nag-iisa. Do not lose hope. We are putting all our cards on you. Okay? At hindi namin kayo iiwan. All right, we are
Right.
here, your teachers, your extended friends, and etc. We are here as one community. Why not, 'di ba? Malay natin. 2022 is the year to be. So stay strong, stay hopeful, and may all the good things in the universe, no, all the angels and blessings go to you, those who dream and those
Right.
who try.
At mahaba-haba ang laban. Isa itong marathon. No? So, akala ko, i-quote mo Czarina ulit ang River Maya. No? May liwanag sa dilim. Okay, now to appreciate, no, and to acknowledge, no, the effort and the time of our excellent guests this afternoon. Our team will present now the certificate of appreciation. Let me read it bilang parte ng ating programa. Ateneo-Dinaga University Office of Student Affairs, in cooperation with the Office of Mission and Identity, presents this Certificate of Appreciation to Czarina Medina-Guce in grateful recognition of her expertise and service as resource speaker in the alternative class program ACP activity titled Woke, Untangling Issues and Opportunities of Youth Participation in Governance and the 2020 elections, held on October 29, 2021. Given this 29th of October 2021 at the Ateneo-Dinaga University, Zoom, City of Naga City, Philippines. Signed, Rodolfo S.B. Vertus, Director of Office of Student Affairs, Janet B. Badong Badilla, Executive Director for Mission and Identity, Dr. Alfredo F. Fabay, or C. Fabay, Vice President for Higher Education, and Father Roberto E.N. Rivera, SJ University Presidents. And thank you so much to everyone who tuned in, no, at nakipag-sabayan sa ating kwentuhan na tanungan with Miss Czarina. Ma'am Czarina, maraming salamat. At sa Bicol, sinasabi namin, Diyos mabalos po.
Yes, I miss going there. I miss
Kapag okay ng lahat, the Ateneo-Dinaga is always open for you. Thank you, everyone. Siguro, as of final...
in time na.
Yes, definitely, Sunny will open the gate for you, kahit mga 6 or 5 a.m. So siguro, for our final, before natin i-close at i-leave yung Zoom, may we request everyone to open their camera and have a family photo? Pwede ba yun, Ma'am Janice? May time pa ba tayo for that?
Yes po. Sir Von.
Para lang may remembrance. Ito yung mga sisingilin namin sa 2022 elections. Just kidding. Sige. On your cue, Ma'am Janice, Open your camera, guys, if okay. And wear your beautiful smiles.
Game na ba? Dapat ba may bibilang?
Oo nga hindi lang natin.
Sir Van, can you please remove the pin nila? For a while.
Para mas marami.
Yeah. Sir Van will be the one to
And congratulations again for OSA, led by Sir Sunny.
Yes.
Vertus,
Thank you so much
for making this possible.
Saka thank you, Marshal. I really enjoyed our time. Kwento-kwento. Hanggang sa ulitin.
Sana. Till our next chismisan, no? I see familiar faces. Ang cute. Hi, Johannes. Hi, former students. Hindi ko kayo nakita ng personal. Ngayon lang ulit.
Okay po. Medyo kailangan lang po natin mag-smile ng matagal kasi 20.
Isang oras din po, mga kaibigan.
Okay lang po. Smile lang po kayo, yung smile yun ang nakita nyo yung love life niyo. Yung ganun pong smile lang kailangan natin.
Yung wala, paano?
Ano na lang yung nakita nila maganda yung nakuha ang grades nila. Baka much better. Okay, smile po. Ready, 1, 2, 3, smile. Keep smiling lang po. Keep smiling. Okay. Okay. Ang dami-dami. Sige, sandali lang po. Binibilisan ko na. My God, ang dami mo po. Ang daming sisingilin.
Oo nga pala, 700 ito.
Oo. Yeah.
Oh my
Bukas pa,
God,
guys.
ilang screenshot
Oo.
yun.
Parang maling desisyon yun ah. Hindi, okay lang.
Actually, hindi naman lahat naka-open cam. So,
Okay.
I think that's it.
All right, thank you, Von.
Yes.
Thank you, Janice. Everyone, thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank
Happy
you,
Integration
Czarina.
Day.
So ulitin, sana face-to-face na sa sunod.
Yes, in time.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat po din. Bye-bye. Bye-bye
Ito pala
naman
yung
ako.
evaluation link po. Salamat, Czarina. Evaluation link para sa mga students. Thank you.
Thank you so much po. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you po.